E benvenuti a tutti, siamo qui con Godwin, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here today.
Let's start talking about your performance last night for the first time in Italy, opening with the orchestra Baobab at Alcatraz. How did it feel to bring your music to an Italian stage and be part of Jazz Me lineup?
It was such a wonderful experience, especially being the first time that I was here. And I don't think there would have been a better introduction to, performing in Italy than what we had yesterday. Also to do it with such a legendary group, and a very soulful audience that, danced when the music needed them to dance, and they also listened a lot when, the music needed them to listen. So it's such a beautiful experience to be here. It's a beautiful city, beautiful people. And yeah, I really cannot wait to be back here. That's what I'm sad that I have to leave soon. Yeah.
And what kind of connection did you felt from the Milan audience? And did anything about their reaction surprise you?
Yes, especially because and I think this is such a good thing. It was early as we started. It was f full in the front, but the more we went into just the first song, you could see the people's eyes light up and they came and they were paying attention. I think a good number of people that are there have never listened to my music or know me, but they, gave me an attention as though they knew or it felt as more, they were familiar with who I was. And that's, an artist's dream to be able to perform to a crowd that appreciates music. So it was such a beautiful reaction and a beautiful experience overall.
Yeah, and instead sharing the stage with the Baobab Orchestra, which is a real deep musical legacy, must been very inspiring to you. Did this influence in some way what you show on the stage? Did you do something
Y-
different from normal?
yes, and it's so interesting because, for instance, with me, I had a very little setup with my keyboard. Matthias, he was on the keyboard, and we had, playbacks, which is a bit more how, you approach modern and traditional music. But when I saw them on stage and it was all of this percussions and instrumentations, it was, super inspiring as well. I think we both approach music quite differently, but at the same time, it's like the traditional nature of both our songs is like what I see connects us. And I was very inspired to watch them also perform yesterday. It's the first time I seen them perform, but I didn't want to leave at any point. So it's such a great honor.
And let's talk about your debut album, Atonement. How would you describe the emotional journey behind this record?
The emotional journey behind Atonement is simply the idea of experiencing love for the first time. Um, it came from a very good place that I had experienced this feeling and I wanted to put that in song. And gradually it grew into, a whole project. But it's basically from the idea of experiencing love for the first time. So love in its very first and purest, form. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it feels like it explored in also in many forms, in like passion, heartbreak, and forgiveness. Was writing this record a form of personal healing for you?
Yes, yes, very much so. Also for the first song you hear on the album was an expression of forgiveness and healing for me personally because it's a song inspired by my childhood. And I felt like to be able to write an album about love, you must be able to forgive because I think it is the bedrock of being able to love somebody. So the first song was an expression of, just forgiving and being ready to embrace this really new feeling. So yeah, there was a lot of emotional healing that happened making the project as a whole. So I do believe that happened, yes.
And also, your lyrics feel intimate yet cinematic, and the production blends acoustic warmth with electronic layers. What inspired that sonic direction?
The sonic direction, I have to give credit duly to Kitsch Creek. This is a production duo based in Berlin. And when we met for the first time, I explained that the idea of the project. It was not very clear what the direction was going to be, but I knew for a fact that I wanted to make a song about forgiveness to begin with. And they have a particular approach to music, which is, like you've rightly said, you could hear an electronic influence, but also it's equally very simplistic, and it's something that you does not overwhelm you. And I think coupled with the fact that I approach singing not as a vocalist that can, hit a million notes, but just like a pure the voice in its rawest form, it just kind of balanced well that, their production or their approach to sound and my voice can, sit well on a record. And it was such a beautiful thing because I remember the first time we recorded the first song, there was such an excitement around just recording that song that we thought, it cannot end here. So we went on to make an album together. So for the sonic and direction, I will have to give Kitch Creek a great, great, great credit for that.
Is there a particular song on Atonement that feels closest to your heart, or one that was especially difficult to write?
Yes, two songs actually. And it was the first song. It would be the first time that I would have to write about something that's deeply emotional and attached to me as a person with people around in the room. Most times, it's very easy to do it alone and do a recording by myself. But it was the first time that I had to be able to freely do that. So that was a bit tricky, but we got past that. And moving on from that was very easy. The second song is Self-Conscious. I don't think I have made a lot of music that feels so fragile and emotional as that song. It was purely just, yeah, just purely emotions, and I think those two songs like have a great place in my heart for forever.
You also mentioned that Atonement is about two strangers meeting, falling in love, and learning to let go. Does this story reflect your own experiences, or it's something more universal?
Um, it's very much universal because I think Atonement is a project that everybody is going to have a different favorite song for. Because, as humans, we feel differently. There's somebody in love and there's equally somebody who's currently heartbroken. So we are all gonna have a different favorite for the project generally. But the good parts of the album was inspired by my life. The negative parts were inspired by some of my friends' story. For instance, when I wrote Self-Conscious, it was inspired by a heartbreak that a friend had gone through. And I remember being in the room and listening to him tell me the ordeal of the heartbreak. And I realized mid-conversation that my friend was the one in the wrong and that he's a gaslighter in this, position, but he's also my friend. So I had to write a song from his perspective that made him feel like he's in the right. But, in a global context, it's a song from the perspective of a gaslighter. So I also equally like the fact that I can write music from other people's experience. So yeah, it's equally my story, but not fully my story.
And Afrobeat instead is often seen as the defining sound of Nigeria right now. Yet your work reaches beyond genre boundaries. Do you feel part of the Afrobeat movement, or are you trying also to redefine what Nigerian music can be?
I think that is both equally what I'm trying to do. I think Afrobeat is my grassroots. It's a song I was raised in. I grew up listening to Afrobeat as much as I still listen to Afrobeat. You can hear it. you could hear the influence of like Afrobeat music in the music I make as well, and the rhythms. So I think that's something that's always going to be there. But also, I want to serve as a future gateway that kind of places a mark that artists from, West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, or, anywhere around the world can make any kind of music they want to make. I think for me, the most important thing is when I approach any record, it took a lot of time to be able to be this person, but when I approach any record, I do whatever, services the record and makes it a good song at the end of the day. So if it needs banjo drums or it needs, an electric guitar, we're going to put it there. And at the end of the day, whatever it sounds like, it's what it is. So yeah.
And also before music, you co-founded the Critics Company and even directed the film in collaboration with Morgan Freeman's production company. And this background of a filmmaker and this new world of music you're going through, as how they are connected and what the cinema and storytelling experience taught you about making music.
Cinema and storytelling was my first exposure to art. So the very first time I dreamt or equally wanted or even just enjoyed art, it was firstly through cinema. And so that being my first exposure means it's always going to be a part of me. The film collective, The Critics, is consisting of myself and four of my brothers, and we've been making films together for since 2012. Our first inspirations were science fiction, so we made a lot of science fiction shots. And now we're just learning to tell stories that are true to the human nature and, where we come from. But also, if you go back to music, I think I see my music first visually before I make anything sonically. So most times when I write songs, I'm trying to service whatever I've seen in my head. And, that's how it goes. And it's such a gift and a privilege that it happens that way because equally when I finish making the song, I now have to create a visual that suits, what I saw first. So it's tied in a way. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Godwin, for being with us, and see you
Thank
soon
you for
back
having
again
me.
in Italy.
Yes, see you soon in Italy. Thank you for having me.